Welcome to the Honor and Knowledge channel. I was interested in some background with regard to the Defense Secretary nominee. I have some family members who are women and were in the military and served with honor and distinction. So I was concerned about what was going on when I saw a Newsweek Magazine YouTube video regarding women's thoughts on what Pete's thoughts are on women in combat. I was taken aback by the idea that Pete was against women in combat, and so I was very interested in looking into this some more. And what I found was Newsweek Magazine had obviously violated the code of ethics. I'll tell you in this video specifically the part that they violated. Even though Pete doesn't like certain aspects of women in combat, the Shaun Ryan interview that was conducted with Pete provided very clear information on what Pete's opinions are. And in this video, I'll show that I'm no longer concerned about Pete's opinions. I'm just concerned again about how the media lies and violates their own code of ethics. So here's the journalist code of ethics, and then here's the specific area that I believe that they violated, that Newsweek Magazine violated, is to provide context. Take special care not to misrepresent or oversimplify in promoting, previewing, or summarizing a story. The Newsweek Magazine took what is actually a pretty complicated situation. You just can't put it into one soundbite. But they did. They took one soundbite of Pete talking with Shaun Ryan and took that and used that with the women veterans. So let's listen to what the women veteran, I view her as a hero, what she said.
There is no front line. Like when people say, oh, women shouldn't serve in the combat zone. Like, okay, an IED can happen at any time. So there is no front line in these wars. In Afghanistan, in Iraq, I have veteran sisters right here in Clarksville that have received the Purple Heart. So they're well capable to serve in the military and serve in combat. So for him to say that, knowing his paperwork, his bullets, something that he received while he was deployed was processed by a woman veteran. It's really heartbreaking that he would say that.
I understand how that could be heartbreaking. That is what Newsweek Magazine told them, but you know what? It's not true. So next we're going to watch and listen to what Pete actually said about the subject that hero woman veteran spoke about.
The reason women started getting in combat is because of forward support companies, and we were integrating a lot of the rear echelon activities into BCTs, brigade combat teams, that were now deploying forward as an entity. And so you had women truck drivers or fuel or mechanics on these convoys in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then they'd be ambushed or hit by IEDs, and suddenly now you have women in combat. That's maybe a modern reality in a 360 battlefield.
So that takes care of that aspect of that hero woman's concerns. Having said that, there's other parts of this video that really help explain where Pete supports women in the military and the line that he has. But for example, Pete, if women can meet the standards, do you think it's okay if women were in traditional men's roles on the front line, like in the Marines?
Buddy. Mm-hmm. And if there's some, hard-charging female that meets that standard, great, cool. Join the infantry battalion.
Okay, Pete, but what about the existing standards for women in military roles? Should we change those?
But I don't know if that'll ever change. I mean, imagine the demagoguery that would come on in Washington, D.C. if you're actually making the case for, we should scale back women in combat.
Yes, Pete has opinions with regard to women in the military. However, Newsweek Magazine violated the journalist's code of ethics with regard to how they presented the information about his opinions. Now, let's go ahead and listen to, in the interview with Shaun Ryan, where Pete spoke about women in the military. He has pretty strong opinions, but clearly he is supportive of the role that women currently play.
I think a huge one is women in combat and quotas. I think the way they pushed that under Obama in a way that had zero to do with efficacy, zero to do with lethality and capability.
You don't like women in combat?
No.
Why not?
I love women service members who contribute amazingly because everything about men and women serving together makes the situation more complicated, and complication in combat means casualties are worse. The reason women started getting in combat is because of forward support companies, and we were integrating a lot of the rear echelon activities into BCTs, brigade combat teams, that were now deploying forward as an entity. And so you had women truck drivers or fuel or mechanics on these convoys in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then they'd be ambushed or hit by IEDs, and suddenly now you have women in combat. That's maybe a modern reality in a 360 battlefield. That's different than intentionally saying we're going to put women into combat roles so they will do the combat jobs of men, knowing that we've changed the standards in putting them there, which means you've changed the capability of that unit. And if you say you haven't, you're a liar, because everybody knows between bone density and lung capacity and muscle strength, men and women are just different. And so if you want to, I'm okay with the idea that you maintain the standards where they are for everybody. And if there's some, hard charging female that meets that standard, great, cool, join the infantry battalion. But that is not what's happened.
Yeah.
What has happened is the standards have lowered. But and I don't know if that'll ever change. I mean, imagine the demagoguery that would come on in Washington, D.C. if you're actually making the case for, we should scale back women in combat. And as the disclaimer for everybody out there, and we're not really in the disclaimer business, like, we've all served with women and they're great. It's just our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue. I think women, I have to give my opinion here, I guess. I think women do have a place in combat if they want it. I think there are certain units that they need to stay out of or create their own. Because when you've said it gets complicated, yeah, it does get complicated, man.
Thank you for watching this video, and thank you for watching the Honor and Knowledge channel.